Alright, so panel of the house. Some fundamental questions which Tayo answers in his speech basically is kind of engagement that we get from closing government, right? So should states sanction majoritarian views when there's conclusive proof that these majoritarian views are going to fail? And this is something which Tayo explains that states should actually not sanction this. And we also, Tayo also tells you about the creation of a hegemony of what an Islamic caliphate should mean, and this is what eventually this does, because unlike what they try to characterize as like it's different between Islamic State and Islamic Caliphate, the idea and ideological underpinning of an Islamic Caliphate is a control of the entire world, right? So Islamic Caliphate is not based on whether we have like in Iraq or Iran. That's why ISIS, for example, is not located to a particular locale. That's why ISIS, for example, when they see that an Islamic fundamentalist group like Boko Haram is supporting the ideological underpinnings, they support them. So that's the basis of an Islamic caliphate. Not that they control a particular locale, but then that they are pervasive all around the world. And because we do not have a singular story or idea of what an Islamic caliphate is, this is something which would fail and is very problematic. And as Tayo tells you, has already failed. We see the fall of al-Baghdadi in Mosul and all of that. And we also believe that, as Tayo tells you, when the legitimacy is something which is contestable, then the only stance which a state should sanction is a neutral stance and not take the other stance, which will eventually be something which is problematic, right? So we do not think that it's the significant support of a group of people justified like to sanction an Islamic caliphate. I'll be showing you how the fact that there's a significant support, although Tayo shows you the contestable nature of this significant support that we get, it is not enough to sanction an Islamic caliphate because of the problematic nature of the Islamic caliphate. And also it's important to talk about the different schisms, as Tayo tells you, that exist within caliphacy, and you cannot sanction one because of the problems that result as a result of this. And it also tells you how like the problems of selecting Islamic caliphate, right? The locale where they are, and we see like a problem when we get Zionists and all of that. And more importantly, and this is what like wins the debate, right? Does this solve the problem of Islamic terrorism and fundamentalism? And what contribution does it have to like solve, even though it doesn't solve it totally, what contribution does it have to solving the problem of Islamic terrorism and fundamentalism? So Tayo already responds to many things that we get from OG and CG, but more like on Olamide's case. So OG tells you that asymmetrical wars cannot be won, right? So they believe that terrorism is a war that cannot be won. We'll be showing you how we get more traction on our side. But more importantly, Tayo tells you because if like the oppression which they believe they are fighting still persists, if we still have Western countries keep invading these places, then there's no winning that we can have, right? And they try to draw, OG tries to tell you that this has been done and it has been successful, although CD tells you that no, it has not been done. So let's test this, right, to see whether it can be done or not. So all it tells you about the Vatican State, right? When we think that the Vatican State is something which is very, very fundamentally different, there's a difference. Buy-in is different, right? So there's a difference in the buy-in of Catholicism and whether or not people want it. But this is different in Islamic ideologies and Islamic fundamentalism. Everybody is forced to actually buy into this, and we think this is something which is very, very bad. And then CD gives you the funny idea that in a state, different ideologies can coexist. This comes in Olamide's speech, but this is something which is very, very wrong. We see that in a state that is based on Islamic fundamentalism and extremism, different ideologies can actually not coexist, because the function of this is not just politics. As Tayo tells you, it transcends beyond politics and it goes into religion. So an Islamic caliphate will fail if it does not ensure that all the state structures, every individual, all systems within the state are those which support Islamic fundamentalism. So their idea on coexisting does not actually exist. So let's see why it is bad to sanction majoritarian views when there's conclusive proof that it will fail. So what gives us like Smith to say that there's a conclusive proof that it's failed? Tayo tells you that there are different schisms that exist within caliphacy, right? And that's why we have even problems that exist within like the control of Islamic powers within Islamic fundamentalism itself. So it tells you about how in Islamic caliphacy, for example, among the Shiites, they believe that it should be gotten through hereditary powers, right? Because caliphacy transcends from what like prophet brings. And then another basis of schism that exists within caliphacy is divine ordination, and the Sunnis are the ones that believe it. So to the extent whereby there are different schisms that exist within caliphacy, and there's no one that can existentially be achieved, we just build up more terrorism. And I'll be talking about this when I talk about how like it worsens fundamentalism and terrorism and all of that. So it also tells you the problematic nature of creating an Islamic state, right? And it tells you about like the example of the Zionist, right? So a Zionist state will be like they are located in a particular place and all of that. But a Zionist caliphate will be one who wants to like move about and control all the structures and control other fundamentalist groups. And we think this is something which is very, very bad. Now I'll be talking more about how this solves the problem of Islamic terrorism. But first, okay.
The only reason why they are against the caliphate is because they think that they can control the narrative of Islam around the world. But we think that is impossible because states are limited by the resources that they have and ultimately by the natural foundation of that.
Alright, so the idea that an Islamic terrorist or fundamentalist group just grows because they want like to limit their Islamic fundamentalism to just one state is something which is untrue. ISIS wants to grow. ISIS wants to like pervade and be permissive in all other locales, right? So they want to go because that's the point of Islamic caliphate, right? The control of the entirety or mainstreaming of what Islam is all over the world. So that's not what Islamic caliphate is. It eventually leads to a control, a support of other terrorist groups that follow and buy into their Islamic fundamentalism and ideology that exists. So let's look at the problem of Islamic terrorism and how like this doesn't solve anything. Yeah, close it.
Right. Even if there's conclusive proof in the liberal mind that it's okay, I do not believe otherwise and say oppression is only reason they don't have paradise. If we let them have it and it fails, that is the final result.
Alright, I didn't get most of what you said. But then on the issue of liberal words and all of that, and when you say that we should not, like, because in David's speech it came that we should not accept the ideals of a liberal world, like we should accept individualism, but we think that it is the ideals of a liberal world that a majoritarian view is one which should continue, like, so it is liberalism in the end that is only a majoritarian view that we can accept. Most like societies that are not liberal are ones which are very, very paternalistic, right? So they want the best for those kind of societies. So the idea that the majoritarian view should be one which should persist, and the reason for this idea is that we want to test it whether it will fail or not, is something which is very, very wrong. If it's for the purpose of testing whether it will fail or wrong, Tayo already tells you that it's going to fail, as we have ISIS and al-Baghdadi. But then even if that, like, you don't buy that, because we have conclusive proof within the fundamental tenets of Islam itself that a caliphate cannot be one which will be achieved, then it's going to fail. So to the extent whereby we have conclusive proof that this is actually going to fail, we do not think that because the majority buy into this or they want this, then it should continue. Tayo also addresses this majoritarian view and like the significant support that exists. So it tells you about how they are usually ideological polar opposites, right? So a significant support is not like everybody supports this, right? But because of like an elitist group and the buy-in that these guys get, that is why we think that there is significant support that exists within this thing, and this is not actually true. So essentially, from closing opposition, we believe that we have conclusive proof that this will fail, and we do not support any majoritarian view. We do not think the state should support any majoritarian view, which is eventually very, very bad, and which leads to more proliferation of Islamic terrorism and fundamentalism. We cannot achieve a caliphate state, so we should not even try it in the first place like CG wants you to do. We are very proud to oppose.
Hello. Before we move to do deliberation as judges, I would call on